I was invited to join the TV Academy, and from that, I got to go to the Emmys, and the Emmys were amazing.
Welcome to the Red, Green, Blue Podcast.
All right. Welcome to the podcast. We got Kelsey Edwards here. She's really quite multifaceted. She's an Instagram celebrity.
That's nice.
Well, 35,000 followers, a significant presence on Instagram. As an actor, she just recently attended the Emmys, and she's also a mindset coach, and she's directed and produced several projects. So she's involved in all areas of filmmaking and is an impressive person. So we're excited to hear her stories. So first of all, tell me what was it like to attend the Emmys.
Oh, the Emmys were so fun. It was so fun. That was like definitely something that I manifested. It was on my vision board for a long time. It'd been on my lock screen. I'd made it like a focus. I put like the Emmys, a picture of the red carpet on there, and I looked at it every day for a long time. And an opportunity came where I worked on a TV show on the Warner Brothers lot, and that was like a really cool. It was like my first recurring role on a TV show, and because I was in a TV show and I had a recurring role, I got to join the TV Academy. And the TV Academy are the people who run the Emmys. It's where like all the for your consideration type things go through. So I was invited to join the TV Academy, and from that, I got to go to the Emmys, and the Emmys were amazing. Like everything you dream of, everything you think it'll be, and more. It was just like one of the most incredible things. Like seeing all the shows that you've watched, right in front of you, all the creators, all the actors, all the showrunners, like right there, and then getting to like rub shoulders with them at the after party and meet all these celebrities that I've like looked up to for so long. And yeah, it was definitely it was like a career, moment for me where I was like, whoa, like this is something I manifested, this is something I've dreamed about for a long time. And like I'm here, like I did it. I sat in my little like black Range Rover that I called to take me there, and I was like, I can't believe I got here. This is crazy. It was really cool.
Well, that is, yeah, amazing. And you got to, and the after party. How did you get into the after party? No, this is, is this
told you
okay?
this off.
Oh, okay. Well, you don't want to talk about it. That's fine. But anyway, just so you know.
I knew someone who knew someone, okay?
Yeah, exactly. It's like the way Hollywood works is that there's all these gatekeepers.
Yeah.
And like I worked in as assistant there briefly. And you basically, your job as a person, if you want to break into Hollywood, you actually break in through the assistance of the people who actually make the decisions.
It's so real.
It's completely run by assistants.
Yep.
And so if you can show you're smart, you're articulate, and you're hardworking, the assistant will talk to the person, the bigwig, about you, and then maybe things will progress. But really, if you can't win over assistants and you're not a nice person to assistants, you will get nowhere.
It's so true because everyone spends all their time like brown nosing the decision maker, right? Without realizing, oh, number one, everyone's going to the decision maker. But if you like you said, you make friends, you are respectful, you are kind, you genuinely get to know this other person, like it could open up other doors. And I don't think it's, great to ever go at something with like, ooh, how can I use this person to get where I want to go? But if you're a genuinely good person and you build a relationship out of being a genuine, authentic person, and then it leads to other opportunities, well, great,
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like most things that I've accomplished in my career up until this point have been because I've known somebody or because someone has known me who's known somebody else, or you know what I mean? It's always through my network. It's always other people. Which is why and you never know who's who, which is why it's just really good to be a good person to everybody, to treat everybody with kindness, to treat everyone with respect, and not like step on people to get where you want to go and then ditch them and be like, thanks, just be good to everyone, be kind to everyone. That's it.
Yeah. And I think like the assistants, because this is what happened, and I experienced this up close. So I worked for a director there, and like someone come by with their portfolio wanting to art direct a commercial or something or anything. And so then at some point, you'd be surprised how small this circle is. It's like even like people like Steven Spielberg, like really big people, they may have like 2 or 3 assistants around them that they spend the majority of the day with.
Mhm.
And they'll be like, well, what did you think about this? They will discuss creative decisions with that assistant. Just to have a sounding board, somebody to talk to about it. And in a way, like, because they spend so much time with them, it's like, and you gotta realize, like, everybody's trying to get something from them. And honestly, even probably this, but the assistant's round enough and so on is there. They actually kind of trust the assistant more than pretty much anybody else,
Makes sense. Yeah.
and they basically, the people they basically trust will be their lawyer, their accountant, and their assistant. maybe even more than their spouse, because it could be like their fourth spouse, and
True.
they don't know.
Right.
I mean, well, I mean, again, it's just, again, when you're like have that much money, that much power, that much influence, like it really messes with your personal relationships. I mean, I'm not saying like it's
100%.
fault, like it super messes with it. And everybody, I mean, you can even read in biographies like people like, who like then they become Sylvester Stallone, then becomes famous. He virtually loses all of his friends. Or Oprah. Oprah had this happen to
Yeah.
her because it's like everybody all of a sudden sees you very differently.
Yep.
And even though you really haven't changed, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So anyway, assistants are super important in LA if you want to get there. But also, I do really feel,
Go find an assistant and make friends with them. Is what we're saying.
seriously, go to the assistants bar. Go to where assistants go, which
these
is actually a
assistants.
place you can probably afford too, coincidentally.
True.
Because
Yeah.
they're not paying assistants a whole lot.
All their emails are going to start blowing up, like all because
Yeah.
of this podcast.
No, and I was actually, my roommate when I lived in New York was the personal assistant for Yoko Ono.
Oh,
And so I saw a lot of that on that end too. I mean, Yoko Ono's even funnier because you got to realize, like, they just get flooded with emails. Like, if they're just out there, it would just be hectic.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't know how to screen it. So they really rely on their assistants to kind of screen stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway,
God bless assistants.
so she knew someone who knew someone. And so she got into the Emmy party, and ta-da, there you go.
Yeah.
And so
It was like a $1,500 ticket, so I'm really glad I knew somebody who knew someone. Because it was nice to just get in for free.
it's like free $1,500 ticket.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
So anyway, how did you start out in acting?
I started out in acting as a kid. I don't really remember a time in my life when I wasn't acting, and that's the truth. My mom got me into theater when I was 5, so I started doing musical theater at 5 years old, and I was like starring in plays as a 7-year-old. I was the only child actor in a cast full of adults because we were homeschooled.
Yeah.
So all the other kids are in school, and my mom's like, my kids are in theater. It was really random, but I'm grateful for that because it really got me a start very young on like performing, being on stage, and stepping into a character and stuff like that. So I did theater for like my first 5 or 7 years. And then when I was 10, we moved out to LA for a little while and we did pilot seasons. And my mom is just like an ambitious woman. She's like, I'm going to take all 3 of my kids to LA and we're going to go stay with our aunt and they're going to do pilot season because we'd come and we'd met this talent manager in San Antonio where I was born and raised. And she was like, your son is great. Like he needs to be in LA. I'll rep him. So we all went out to LA to do that. All of us got agents, all of us got managers. We all got our headshots and we were all working as child actors. So my brothers had like some really cool career wins. My older brother was on a Disney Channel show, and my little brother was in a couple cool movies with some name actors, and I had some cool wins.
He
too,
mentioned
but,
that. What was that?
Brady?
Yeah, Brady. What was he
Yeah,
in? He was on this
As
podcast
the Bell
previously.
Rings.
As the
I
Bell
think that was the
Rings.
show that he was on.
Oh, neat. I should have asked him.
Yeah.
Just when he said it, it was like a surprise because I don't know him as an actor.
It's very random. He worked with Demi Lovato, but like before she was a big deal. You know what I mean? It's like
Amazing.
it's like way back when. And so
Yeah.
it's kind of funny to think about those moments. And then we did a movie when I was 14 called Minor Details that we filmed here in Utah
Mhm.
that kind of had this like cult following with like teenage girls and like became this like global phenomenon with like 12-year-olds and like girls were watching it like over and over and over and over. And it had Jeanette McCurdy from iCarly, which I think is one of the reasons why it popped off because it had like a name actor for that time period, And yeah, it was just a fun little film that we all did that we made here in Utah and filmed it at American Fork Junior High, I think. And it was on Netflix for about a decade, and that was like it was when Netflix was just becoming like a thing online.
Yeah.
It was being mailed as DVDs, and then it went online, and it was just like being streamed all over the world. So that was like my career as a teenager, and then yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. And I've stayed consistent as an actor. I did take a little break. My parents got divorced, and our lives became like chaotic, and so
Mhm.
I went back to school and did the responsible thing and was like, I'm just gonna go get a degree because being an actor is crazy. And then
So you went to college?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to BYU.
That's unusual for an actor, by the way. Often they don't.
Yeah.
Because they enter so young and then they're just busy and they just can't get to it.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Not that you can't be an educated, smart person without going to college.
Right.
A lot of them are incredibly smart.
Yeah.
Like Shia LaBeouf, very smart as you can get, read everything, but he didn't go to college.
Yeah. And I don't know that I would have, except for the fact that like my family's life fell apart. Like my parents had this like chaotic divorce that was like very crazy. We moved from Texas to Utah and like started our whole lives over when I was 17. And so it was just like so much of that time period was about surviving and just like, can we survive? Can we like get on our feet again after this, horrible experience, that there was no time for me to like be an actor or be creative. There was no headspace for it. And then at that point I kind of talked myself out of my dreams, which makes me really sad to think about. But yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna go to BYU. I got a degree in PR. I planned to work a 9 to 5 until I got married and had kids. Like that was all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then anyways, I'm not to give you too much too soon, but like my whole life changed after a trip that I went on and I was like, that's not what I want to do. And
So what trip did you go on?
here I am.
We can talk about that.
Okay.
Whatever. We're there.
I'm like, this is not so
It
Cliff
was
Notes.
a literal trip, not a metaphorical trip.
It was
I'm guessing.
no, but it could have been both, I guess, except there
Yes.
were nothing involved,
But
but
yeah,
no psychedelics. But no, it was a physical trip to Europe. I went to Europe in 2017. It was like a semester, or I was a year away from graduating from BYU. And I just was like, I need to go see the world. I need to go see some things. And that trip just changed everything for me. I was working a 9 to 5. I was at BYU and I realized, and I also like my belief system changed a lot on that trip too. Like I just realized, oh, the things I've believed, the life I've been following, the, path I've been on is not really the path I want anymore. Don't know that I want to do these things anymore. So I came back from that trip, realized I didn't want to ask somebody for time off on my life again, like we just talked about before
yeah,
this. I was like, okay, great. I need to have a business. Okay, great. I'm going to work for myself. Okay, great. I'm a creative at my core. My soul is dying at this 9 to 5 job. Like I'm miserable every day.
What was the
So
job?
I was working in an ad agency. I was like an account manager for an ad agency.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was good. Like the company itself was great and the people were amazing, but I realized in that context
That's
that
not the worst of jobs I've ever heard,
no,
though.
no, no, it
It's not like,
wasn't.
yeah, that's pretty, yeah, but I know I understand
It
that.
was fun. It was
Yeah.
good. And I had a creative, position and I was really good at it.
Yeah.
I'm like very
And
right
that's
and
very
left
young to be
brain.
having the job like that, too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was really a great company and I have nothing negative to say about them. It was just that I learned that I am not meant to be an employee in that way. Like I'm not meant to
Hmm.
work a 9 to 5 at a desk for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just not wired that way. So that trip changed everything for me. And I was like, okay, great. That's when I started focusing on social media. That's when I started focusing back on my acting career. That's when I focused on doing music. And I was like, okay, I'm going full fledged on these things that I have always cared about, but kind of like convinced myself not to care about for a little while. And like, yeah. So that was kind of the start of everything. It was a big change in my life after that.
Interesting. Yeah. For me, it was when I was offered, I was in the final 3 for a full-time teaching job at Savannah College of Art and Design.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I was like, I was looking, I was, going to do the campus visit, which is like one of the last steps. And I was like, I don't know. I know if I take this job, I know how the rest of my life will go. Like both my parents were teachers at university, and I was like, I knew the life, I knew the path it would be, and especially since Savannah was probably the best art school I could, get a job at, and
Yeah.
there's not a better working experience for as far as like an art teacher goes. But I just like it bugged me somehow that I knew how the rest of my life would go, and so I was like, I'm gonna do other things, and it's been great. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Yeah. And
It's
here you
been
are.
better than I imagined, but that's a summer thing. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's kind of scary, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think about this a lot where I'm like, wouldn't it be nice? But it wouldn't be nice like if I didn't have big dreams. But sometimes I'm like, it would be so much easier. But again, we're not made that way. Like I couldn't just live a life that I'm not like excited about or live a life that I don't know what the next thing is. Like you said, somehow knowing exactly how your life's gonna look for the rest of your life is a little bit, that's a bummer,
Yeah, no, I mean, and don't get me wrong, like I don't have a trust fund, and my parents were teachers, so and so on. So I'm totally can appreciate making money.
Yeah.
Yes, but to me, what you need to do, I think that, like there's like the Steve Jobs speech, like follow your passion, which makes sense. But to me, you want to follow your passion and where you make money, where that overlaps.
Yeah.
So, and that there, like your passion could be um Olympic fencing, which makes sense, but you're probably not going to make a living doing, Olympic fencing. You'll,
You
you'll,
could.
oh, yeah.
You
No,
could-
I'm sorry. No,
no.
I'm sorry. No, I mean, no, I mean,
It depends on how you monetize it, though, right? Like maybe there are a lot of people in the world who want to be an Olympic fencer.
no, they are, but I bet at the highest level, they have money coming from other ways. I mean, that again, that's just, you notice that like once you like actually get in the field, like from a distance, you're like, oh, they must make money. And then you get close, you're like, no, they don't. They really don't. They make virtually no money, and they have X that supports them. I mean, there are a lot of fields like that. I mean, you can you do see professional actors. They exist. You've heard of them. They're like Brad Pitt. That exists, but like it's certain things like people who make a full-time living from curling and stuff. And actually I know this because I know a lot, like most people in the Olympics, like I'm gonna leave off names on this because this is more personal,
Oh.
but I knew one of the most important people in Winter Olympics, and through them I met lots of Olympic athletes. And the person I knew who was a very important Winter Olympic athlete, made a very good living, but virtually everybody else in a lot of more of the niche winter sports don't.
Hmm.
They may get like a check from the Olympic team, but even then after that, they usually go into business or something. And you can even see it. They'll be like on the Olympics, like, I'm starting a snowboard company, and they show like a goggles or something because
Yeah.
they're trying to do that, but often it doesn't work. Anyway, so yeah.
Who knew?
So where those two lines overlap, because you do need to make you do need to make a living, and
Yeah.
also fields change and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what I meant is
But
like maybe
but you're passionate. No, but if you're passionate, you will, probably be successful, I feel, you know. But yeah. So anyway, to summarize what I just said, what you're passionate about overlaps with what you like. Because wow, Steve Jobs, you just so happen to be passionate about selling computers. Not many people are passionate about that, but it made him one of the richest people in the world. So it's very easy for him to give that speech. But
Yeah.
if you're passionate about um growing orchids in your garage, it'd be harder. It'd be a much harder path. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so you were passionate. You decided you didn't want to do a 9 to 5 job, and you always could. I mean, like I said, a lot of the Olympic athletes, they go and it benefits them. In fact, I have a friend who didn't make the Olympic team, but was like on the Nike team, and now he's got a senior position at one of the most important companies in the state. It makes this extremely good living.
Yeah.
Because one thing can inform the other,
Yeah.
of course. So anyway, so so you got started in acting and you just decided to go full in on it. And so how did that, like, what parts did you get that made you feel like this was something you could do? And because you've
Yeah.
worked pretty consistently. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was a season in Utah where I was working a lot. Like I was doing a ton of ads. I was doing a ton of like short films, and I was working in some, a couple features, mostly like short films and ads and things like that. But I was auditioning a lot, and I was like, wow, I'm like, this is going really well. Like I'm having hosting jobs. I'm getting teleprompter gigs. I'm performing at events. So I was also doing music, and I was performing at like really, really big events around Utah and like big venues. And I was like, oh, okay, I think maybe there's something to this. And it was, yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I was really enjoying it. And I was also focusing on my social media. So my Instagram was growing at the time. I was doing YouTube at the time. And there was kind of just like this, like, oh, I'm figuring life out as an artist. This is really cool. And then yeah, so I think that there was kind of just enough momentum at that time that I was like, okay, I think there is something to this. And I don't think I need to do the things that everybody told me I needed to do. I don't think I need to live my life the way that everybody told me I should live my life.
Hmm.
And I took some risks, and I made leaps of faith. And that's kind of, I went out to LA in 2019, which was, I just felt like I was like, okay, I'm ready for new challenges. I'm ready for like a new level of opportunity. I'm ready for a new level of experience, kind of a thing. And I'm ready to like be at the floor where I know absolutely nobody and nobody knows me. Like I want to like build from the ground up.
No, I think it's fantastic.
Thanks. So it's yeah, it was really, I think anyone who like goes out to a big city recognizes like, okay, this is a leap of faith, but it worked really well for me, and it has continued to work really well, and I'm very grateful for that because it's not always the experience that everybody has. But yeah, I committed myself when I got there. I decided that I was going to have a very different experience than most artists and creatives have. And I really have had a very different experience. I attribute that a lot to like the mindset and energy work that I've done and I continue doing over the years. But yeah, I mean, and it's an ongoing journey. Like I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm also so much farther than where I've ever been.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful for the growth and the progress I've made while also still keeping my eye on the things that I'd like to keep accomplishing and the
Hmm.
goals that I want to keep hitting. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah. So what was that first struck you when you moved to LA?
I always tell this story because it was a very defining moment for me. My first week when I got there, I showed up to a party, like someone had invited me that I met through something. I don't remember how I met this person, but they invited me to this party.
Yeah.
And I told this girl that I'd met, and I was meeting an agent, and it was like his open house for his new office. And she was like, "Oh, you're new to LA. That's so cute." She's like, "This city's gonna eat you alive, sweetheart." I was like, "Okay." Like,
What? Are you
yeah,
serious? That's so rude.
I know.
But
I'm
in a
like,
way, that's a nice thing to say. I don't know.
is
But,
it?
well, I don't know. I mean, you'll be like, okay.
I was like, thanks.
Well, I mean, I know actresses who have gone to LA and it's gone very, very poorly for them. I'm not
Totally.
kidding.
No,
Like really poorly.
that's what I just said though. Like a lot of people have that experience, but
Yeah.
like this is why I'm so passionate about mindset work is that you get to decide your experience. You get to decide your beliefs about the experience you're going to have. And like I decided when I got there, like, no, I'm not going to have that experience. Like other people are telling me how LA is going to be. Other people tell you this starving artist mindset and like you have to hustle and grind your way to the top and it has to be so hard and you have to be struggling to pay your rent. And I was like, no, like I don't want that. I reject that notion. That's not my reality.
hmm
And as a result, I created a completely different reality for myself. And I'm so passionate about the power of your mind, the power of your beliefs, and to create what you want. And so, yeah, I'm like, that might have been her experience. That might have been her reality,
Yeah.
but she was projecting it onto me. And that's like not really fair. Right. And it's whatever. Like I take that as a laugh now. It makes me laugh when I think about it.
Yeah.
And I take it as like a thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to like prove you wrong,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's funny. That was one of the first things that struck me is there's a lot of negativity in the city. There's a lot of like people that have been kind of like burned out. Yeah, they're burned out. They're jaded. There's a lot of
No, it's
jaded
true. There's a lot of
people.
yeah. No, and that's true in general. And I do think
Yeah.
there's this great scene in Cinderella, and this is true of anybody who's worked in the arts. I mean, not anybody, but you will see this if you're in the arts, and as you get older in the arts, you will see this tendency in others, and you do not want to develop it in yourself. There's this great scene in the Kenneth Branagh Cinderella that's like the live action one, and Cinderella after she's leaving to go with the prince, and she confronts her stepmother, is like, "Geez, why were you so mean to me? Like I never did anything to you." And the stepmother explains, "Honestly, I resent how young you are, how great you are, and how much
Mhm.
opportunity you have. And I just wanted to put that down." I mean, they say it much better and more articulate,
Right.
but it's you will see that like, oh well, I mean, and I've experienced other ways, and of course, even here in Utah, just kind of like, oh well, you're not. If I couldn't make it, you couldn't make it, and that is just
Exactly.
not true.
Nope.
Like they don't know your skill set, they don't know what you're doing. Like for me, like on the photography end of things, like I know it's hard to get a job as a photographer, but it was never hard for me.
Right.
Like I can't think of a single time I ever applied for a photo job where I didn't have at least 5 offers.
It's amazing.
And I know that's like a unique experience, but I did work really hard. And, even like the first time I walked in to the Deseret News with a sheet of slides saying, "Hey, can I," at the age of 18, and the bureau chief, who just happened to be there, I had no idea what a bureau chief was just like, no, there's no way. We're not hiring anybody." And they looked at the slides like, well, maybe actually
Um,
we'll pass this on. And so like, if it will, yeah. But, a lot of people, you get one life and people are confronting things that went wrong with their lives as they get older and stuff. And just so if you're a young person starting in the field, don't let that get you down. You
100%.
don't be like, oh, well, then I guess I shouldn't try. Like, no, try.
Mm,
But that's just what it is.
Yeah, and be willing to be told no. Like, I mean, I don't think anybody likes to be rejected, but I've been doing this since I was 5. Like, rejection is so common for me that I'm like, I'm not afraid of being told no now. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I'll pitch myself, I'll throw myself in rooms that I'm not ready to be in. I'll put myself in opportunities that I'm like not quite prepared for because number 1, I'm not afraid of being told no, and number 2, I know that I'll rise to it and I'll step into whatever I need to do. You know what I mean? Like, I can become whatever I need to be, do that, and being told no is just a part of the job. And like if you got told no, like I saw this video on Instagram the other day that this guy was saying, I'll change how you view no in 2 seconds. Like if I told you that having $1 billion company was 40 no's away, how quickly would you be out to go get those 40 no's?
Exactly. It's like,
Right?
well, more than that, you only need one yes,
Right. That's the thing.
And then the other side is I do think, especially, I don't know, some people may have been raised. I do think this is a mistake people make sometimes with kids, like some parents, like they don't want their kid to go through a hard thing. And so when they hit their first no, it's just devastating. And they
Right.
may not hit that first no until they're like 25 or something. But it's just part of, especially with acting. But like I had a friend who went to LA, so on. And I said, "Oh, great. So what auditions did you go on? Like, what was it like?" And she was like, "I went on one. There were like 10,000 people there. And I turned around and that was it." I mean, like that was like her whole experience going to
Yeah.
LA. And, of course it's like, I mean, yeah, it's like the 100 audition thing or whatever. Like, yeah, just go on a lot of auditions and make auditions fun, I
Yeah.
feel. I mean, think about it, like, you're getting a part.
Yeah.
You have a part if you have an audition.
Mm.
Like, they've given you a script and you have a part and you have an audience. And that audience, again, sitting on that side of the table, they want nothing more than the next freaking Brad Pitt or
Right.
Nicole Kidman or, you know, Kate Blanchett to walk through that door. That is their dream. That's why they're sitting at that desk. And they want you to be that person,
They do.
you know? And they're not paying you money. They don't have any expectations. They haven't bought a ticket, you know? They just want you to be successful. You'll never have a more pleasant audience. So perform, and then you're there because you like performing, right? So take your part seriously, really think about it, and perform.
Yeah.
And there you go.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset shift, right?
That is a
What you
mindset
just
shift.
described
Yeah.
is a really powerful mindset shift because a lot of actors will go into an audition with this, like, and I've done this in the past too, so I understand, but it's like, oh, please, 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 please choose me, please pick me, please, 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 you know, like, please
Yeah.
like me, please tell me I'm good enough. And
Yeah.
we approach our auditions with that energy. It's like, girl, no wonder you don't book when you're walking into a room, like begging everyone to just approve of your presence, you know? It's like, you got to be so bought in on yourself, in your magnetism, who you are and what you bring to the table, that when you show up in that room, you're detached from the results. Whether you book it or not is irrelevant. Because, like you said, you love art. You just got a role to perform. You're here to
Mhm.
perform. You have a captive audience that wants you to do well. They're not like, is she gonna mess up? You know what I mean? They want
No,
you to
that's
do
not
well.
happening at all. Yeah.
Right. And if you,
Like your high school drama class was the most critical audience you'll ever have.
right, 100%.
Because they're
Yeah.
other actors and they don't want you to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's really
But
that
people casting.
energy
Yeah.
of detaching. It's detaching from the results, detaching from their perspectives of you, and entering with like the wholeness that you have, that this result means nothing about you. And if this role is not for you, there's going to be another one that is, you know?
Yeah. Well, and also, again, another thing is be on the other side when you're sitting with a bunch of headshots, you're looking at tapes. It's like, it's not necessarily like the quality of the performance, it's just whether do they fit.
Yeah.
That is
100%.
that eliminates 99% of the qualified people.
Yep.
And also when you're doing audition, it depends what level and how close the audition is and stuff. But certainly in any open audition call,
Oh, yeah.
like 90% of the people will probably not be remotely competent.
Yeah.
And like 10%, so you're in that 10%, you got a chance. But even then, you can be good enough. 10% of the people could probably work, but it's whether they fit.
Right.
And it takes a lot to fit, you know?
Yeah, because you're trying to fit the idea
So,
that the director has in their head about who this character is, right? Or the writer
yeah.
or the producer, or whoever's, you know, in the room. But it's like they have an idea about what they want, and they've also communicated that to the casting director. So then the casting director, they're all just trying to, like you said, make sure you fit. You could be so freaking talented, but if you have blonde hair and the other lead has blonde hair, like, ooh, we're not looking for that. Or like they
Yeah,
just want a
it won't
different
fit
vibe.
together.
It
Yeah.
won't, you know? And it's like, yeah, it's so much about like detaching your value from the results and not taking it personally, and just knowing like, oh, that wasn't mine, but the next one's gonna be, or another one's gonna be, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and also, even then, like, I mean, here's just a random thing. Like, George Lucas, one of the main reasons why Carrie Fisher got the role is because she kind of looked like George Lucas's sister. That's it.
That's so
It is funny. Yeah.
funny.
He in American Graffiti, which predated Star Wars, the lead female role in that also kind of looked like his sister. And he just liked to cast people who kind of look like his sister. So when
Aw.
he was casting the Princess Leia part, he's like, I want a younger version. This is cruel to the girl actress who's in American Graffiti. I want a younger version of this actress who was in American Graffiti.
Whoa.
And she heard that and she's like, darn it. So she could have like been like a megastar, but she was
Yeah.
just like she just aged 5 years in between the two of them or something. And so
Right.
she couldn't play the role anymore.
Wow. That's
So
crazy. That's
isn't
an
it crazy?
story.
So yeah, it's a lot of luck, a lot of, randomness, and things are going to decision, like how people's sisters look. So you just have no idea. So
That's
just
crazy.
don't leave like, oh, if I just said that line differently, or if I just done this differently. It's like, nah, just keep putting yourself out there and, and have fun with it. Because if you're an actor, you're going to do a lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll probably audition more than you work.
Right.
At
I
least
mean,
certainly when you're starting
100%.
out.
Yeah, but like it's just a part of the job, you know. But yeah, it's easier said than done, but it's definitely an important practice to maintain over the years if you want to continue being an actor, you know, because the mindset stuff will really get you down if you get like burdened by the rejections all the time. Hard to keep showing up. So
Yeah. Well, even like Josh Brolin, like he was in Goonies, and that was like a big break from early on. And then he didn't work for 10 years,
mm,
like in basically nothing.
yeah.
I mean, these stories you hear a lot. So, and what is it? Arnold Schwarzenegger, he 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 walked away from being like a megastar weightlifter, said, I'm going to fully focus on acting, and then act for 5 years.
Hmm.
Like, didn't get a single phone call.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, even though he was like on the Tonight Show and about kind of a semi-celebrity, just nobody wanted to hire him,
Smart.
but he just kept doing it.
Yeah.
So, what is what? So, when you started, how did you get onto Instagram, and how did that happen? Like when we were like, I'm going to be serious about Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, that started at the same time, like, where I kinda hit this pivot of, like, "Ooh, the life I have is not the life I want anymore." And so, I was, like, looking for opportunities to change things, like, I call that, like, my 2018 and 2019 was, like, my period of, like, just throwing spaghetti at the wall and being like, "What's gonna stick? What's gonna stick? I'm gonna try a million different avenues," and
Hmm.
I was doing music, I was doing YouTube, I was doing music videos on YouTube, I was doing, yeah, Instagram content, like, that was, like, the day that was when, like, 2018 prime Instagram, like, when photos, like, modeling type photos were all the rage, and I was doing all these photo shoots with all these Utah photographers, and it was going really well. It was, like, working with a ton of brands, and I was making money, and I was like, "Wow, this is, like, really cool." And I created this brand called Your Internet Big Sis, which was like basically confidence and self-love for teen girls.
Hmm.
Because I had a pretty rocky like teenage years as I was describing briefly.
Getting divorced will do that.
Yeah, having that situation. So I was like, how can I, provide value for a younger version of me? Because I'm sure there are girls going through something similar, whatever. So I did that on social media for a while too, and that was really fun. And I was like, I had some I studied PR in college, so I was doing some freelance like PR social media stuff. I had some social media clients that I was running their social medias for, and I was
Hmm.
creating funnels for their businesses, stuff like that. So I was just doing like anything and everything related to social media and entertainment just to kind of see like what would land. And yeah, so that's kind of how that started.
And then how
And
did it grow? I mean, when did you notice it was going to starting work to work?
yeah, I mean, it started working that year, like, it was working right away, and then I got to LA and it continued to be a thing, and I started doing this live streaming app that, like, took off very quickly, and I grew a huge following on that app and started making money on that, and I was like, "Oh, like, this is a lot easier than I thought it was gonna be," which is not always the case, right? But, like, that's just again, I chalk it back up to I decided, like, "This is gonna work. I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna have a different situation," and I started making more money, like, living in LA than I'd ever made in Utah because I was just had all these different things going, and I had multiple streams of revenue, and I
Yeah. Well,
you
and also you're
know
surrounded by people who are all focused on the same thing,
Yeah.
rather than just being kind of like, oh, that's your weird hobby.
Yeah.
And I think that helps like focus people.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. But, yeah, it just kept going, and that's, like, the kind of the journey I've been on for the last few years is, like, creating, content on social media, acting, music, all these different things. I
Hmm.
started directing and, directed a short film a couple years ago that premiered at Film Quest that I was really excited about, and I've produced a few other things, and then as of this last year, I've really pivoted my business now to focus more on this mindset manifestation coaching for artists and creatives. So
Yeah.
it's been like a really, I don't know, big journey as it usually is, but it's been really fun. It's been really fulfilling. I've learned a lot and I've been always willing to pivot. I've always been willing to try new things. I've always been willing to see what's working, see what's not, try something different, put myself in uncomfortable positions. Like I just kind of keep going.
Yeah, that's entrepreneurship right there.
Yeah.
You're like always like if you're feeling comfortable, and I think there are certain people who like to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this is boring and routine. I got to make this. I got to figure out how to make it. And honestly, traveling is a big example of that.
100%.
You're
Yeah.
like, oh, like I've never. In fact, I noticed this. Like I did a trip through the Middle East, and I noticed that like the Middle East is kind of like of hardcore travelers is kind of like the last destination. Like
Mhm.
everybody who travels the Middle East is super hardcore because I mean, I'm not saying it is kind of hard. It is kind of dangerous, especially if you're an American, or something, and or even a Westerner. But the people are like, but it's an adventure, and there are people who want to be there because of that.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's acting, entrepreneurship, same thing, because that's really what you are as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Just, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
and honestly, and that's what every actor is.
Yeah, acting is a business for sure.
Yeah.
I think I don't know, like I'm really passionate about this, but like putting yourself in a position to make decisions, right? Because a
Yeah.
lot of actors just sit and wait and like don't give themselves any power. They wait for other people to choose them. They wait for other people to like give them the opportunity. And I kind of realized, I think during that time, like, I don't want to wait for people to give me opportunities. Like, I want to go make them. So I
Yeah.
did. I started making them. And that's what allowed me to travel. Like, I've traveled every year now, since like 2017, multiple times a year, and done solo trips and really explored the world and found myself and
Hmm.
just created this like really fulfilling life that I'm very grateful for and very proud of. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't realized, like, oh wait, I'm the creator of my reality and I get to choose what I want.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No. And that's again waiting. What is it? It's like, who was it? I can't remember. It was like Jerry Seinfeld was interviewing him. Who was it? Alec Baldwin. That's it.
Ah,
He said he said people, they kind of seem to expect someone to knock on the door and be
right.
like, "Hey, we're the talent scout, and we just heard you were talented, and we're here to take you away." Like, no, you need to get yourself out there in some way. If people can't see you and talk to you, then they're not going to find you. And especially, like, I do think it's one thing. I don't know if you found this, but in New York and to a degree in LA, like, LA is a little bit more networked, but it's everybody's coming from out of place state. There's a lot of people coming in,
Yeah.
and this is the bad experience. There are people in like New York or LA or London, I think any major city, who kind of prey on people who are coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a constant stream. There's always another person. And if they like screw you over, there's gonna be another person the next day. It's really no problem. And so you want to avoid those people, and you can spot them pretty quickly. I mean, that's, I mean, yeah, and or you even just need to get burned once and you figure it out. But um, and honestly, if you know somebody who's been there before, they can help you out, kind of just navigating. Again, I don't want to overstress. This isn't like a huge thing. Like you're going to be bodily safe for sure, pretty much. Don't worry about it. But at the same time, it's a good place to be because you can be seen,
Mhm.
and it's there, and where the discussion is where the decision makers are.
Yeah.
And if you're not there, then and you're not in the discussion, it's amazing how casual and how these decisions are made. It's not like, well, they go to the surveys and they find out. I mean,
Right.
so if you're just there, like, it's just amazing how when it happens, you'll be like, wait a minute, that minor conversation resulted in my entire life changing.
Yup. Yup. I think about that all the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
I look at this moment that I arrived at this place and I'm like, whoa. And I play back all the things that had to happen to get there. And like the one decision I made from a place of like, I'm going to do that. And I didn't even think anything of it. You know what I mean? And I like arrived at this point, which is like the importance of inspired action, like aligned inspired action. But yeah. And I don't think you have to be in LA to like have a successful career. Like there's a lot of amazing creatives here in Utah making
No, they
incredible
are.
films, right?
It's
This
true.
is a great industry. And it's also
Well, and with the
so
internet, that's changed too.
right.
Yeah.
And Utah is so much more accessible. Like the decision makers are so much more accessible and like the network is so much smaller. Like the likelihood of you knowing someone who's doing really cool stuff here is much higher, right? Whereas like in LA, it seems like there's a little bit more degrees of separation. There's a little bit more people. There's
Mm.
more, I don't know, I hate using the word competition, but there's just
There's a
others.
lot more competition.
But yeah, I mean, competition has this negative,
Yeah.
connotation to it, but there's more people in a space that are doing similar things to you, right? I guess I don't really believe in competition because I feel like whatever's meant for you is going to be for you.
That's true. Yeah.
But there's definitely, there's an abundance of other people around you that you also
Yeah.
have to factor in, you know. So my point was that I was like, where was I going with this? My point was that you don't have to be in LA, but I do think that if you are looking for opportunities for like networking, that is where a lot of decision makers are. That is where a lot of,
Yeah.
cool things are happening. But I think you can make it work in either. And I'm back and forth between Utah and LA constantly. Like
Yeah.
I was here 2 weeks ago and I'll be back in March. So I'm here all the time, which I love because then I can maintain my Utah friendships and also maintain my LA friendships. And like
Hmm.
I
And the
get to
Queensland,
do
we're
both.
saying Utah, but this applies to any state. Like you could say Oregon
Oh
and
yeah, for sure.
LA. Like, and again, that's a common thing. It's
Yeah.
like to do well in your local market and then go to LA. But even then, like I've had like there was a woman who was a model here, and I'm semi proud of this. It's like as a model scout, and I said like I was like, you really should be a model. She's like, no, and she was kind of like a heavier girl,
Uh-huh.
and I was like, no, like you totally should be a model. She's like, I went to an agency here and they just told me I was too fat. I was like, no, no, like because I had worked on a shoot where we used plus size models for an ad, and I was like, no, there's this category model which is like super important and super big and hot, and like it it it's hard to find people, and you would be a good fit.
Mm.
And she was like, okay. And now she's like one of the biggest models in New York. I'm
No
not kidding. Like
way.
huge, works
That's cool.
virtually every week, has Skims, every major brand you can think of. I mean,
Wow.
she's like the supermodel of plus size models. And there you go.
Called it.
I called it. I was like,
You're
shoot, I
welcome.
should have become an
Should have
agent.
gotten a finder's
And I
fee,
even like,
man.
because she wasn't even aware of that category of model. And I even sent her like a link of like an agency is like, these are plus size models. And it's like, see,
Wow.
that's where you fit. And so like when you're in a bigger market, there's like more nuance you can be in. Like, I don't know if like Liam Neeson could really make it in the Utah market. No, I mean, he's like fantastic in every way, but like we just don't generate many roles for 55-year-old men,
Yeah.
So
Of that specific like niche
that
or
type,
archetype.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
a Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if he'd
Okay.
make in Utah market, you know,
Unless some
even like
really cool
young
crime
Sylvester
film.
Stallone. But we just don't do enough of those. But again, you just kind of need to find your space. In a bigger market, bigger city, you can find your space probably a little better. But of course, Sylvester Stallone famously has written most of his own movies. So really, Sylvester Stallone, nobody wants. He's a writer who cast himself, basically.
Yeah, he's
And
self-made.
but he's an excellent writer. I mean, writing Rocky alone is astonishing.
I know that
It's one of
story
the
is
best
so
scripts
cool.
ever.
I love that story when I think about it. That's like such a great example of like not giving up, and everybody was like, no. And he was like, I'm going to play this character. Like, there's no other option. And
Yeah.
catapulted his career into, fame because he didn't give up and he didn't like compromise on the fact that he wrote this and he was going to play it. And like, wow, that's such commitment to yourself as an artist and commitment to your career. Very
Yeah, well, of
inspiring.
course, like Matt Damon has a similar story, and it's like, and again, like if you can generate ideas, there's a starvation for new, good, creative ideas. And the
Yeah.
nice thing, to me, the nice thing about being LA is people can spot it. Whereas, like, people, because it's their job, it's their livelihood,
Yeah.
and they've seen a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
So if you come with them with a new creative idea, they're like, that's good. Like, honestly, like as a photographer, I didn't work much in the Utah market, like ever. Like,
Yeah.
but I did really well in New York, like super well.
Same.
And then like my professors at BYU would be like, you're no good. Like, I'm not kidding. I'm like,
What?
yeah, well, I mean, they did like these cheesy landscape photography, and like they were just like, well, if it can't be a pretty postcard, then is it a photograph? I'm not kidding. They're that limited. And again, Utah's got a lot of great landscape, and it makes sense that they're here. But like, it's actually the reverse. Like, if you're a pretty postcard photographer, you won't work. And they didn't work. They never worked because it's just there's so many pretty landscapes. The market's completely saturated. Everyone loves taking them. And there's just not much of a market for it. But like the type of work I did, there was a market for it. And it's much harder to do because photographing people's much more complicated. People are much more complicated than a mountain in a lot of ways.
Yes.
So yeah, so I guess like that's my experience in the market. But no, but I do think like you should just get out as soon as you can. Get out in the world in any capacity.
Yes.
But I would certainly, I talk to people here in the Utah market or anywhere else. It's like, look, you're working on the biggest stuff here in Utah. Maybe you should just give it a shot in the LA market or something. And partially it's like, well, how do again, it's how do you know your life is going to go?
Yeah.
Right. But again, with the internet and Instagram, like you upload something on Instagram, you're part of that market.
Yeah.
You're part of that social media. Like you're everywhere. And like these girls, they just run down Provo. Sorry, we were talking about this before the podcast. There, some people, they just post pictures. 3 girls, they post pictures of them running down Provo Canyon every day. It's like mile 1, mile 2. And they're essentially, little mini celebrities who like have a following, hundreds of thousands of followers, and they sell them merchandise and they have a job.
Yeah.
And that's pretty amazing. And they just did it in, a city with a population of 500,000. Yeah. In the middle, which is not a media center. So the internet is changing everything, and certainly there are a lot of opportunities here as an actor anywhere in filmmaking.
Yeah.
Especially as cable TV collapses. How is that going? What is the market like? Because we had this big bubble, or like, I don't know, bubble, but we had this big boom in production after COVID, and all the major studios took out massive loans to make all this content. They were in a big streaming fight, and then it kind of just like, oh my goodness, the streaming services aren't making as much money as we thought. And so all their share prices went to peanuts. Like Disney lost half its value. Paramount went down to $7 a share. I mean, the list goes on. Paramount was bought out. So what is it like? And we're still living in this lull. What is it like in LA now?
Yeah, LA is It's I'm always so careful about the way that I speak about things, but
Well, you don't want to be a downer,
no,
right?
and no,
Yeah.
and your language creates your reality, your words create your
Yeah.
reality, right? So I'm like, it is, I feel like LA has been through a lot in the last
You
few
know,
years.
especially this fire, geez.
Yeah, from COVID to the strikes that we've been on to this like
It's like a roller
lull, if you
coaster,
will.
really.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then now the whole city's on fire. Like it's been a lot, and I know that a lot of people are feeling very heavy about it, feeling like very down about it. Like there's no work. What am I going to do? Like a lot of people are really stressed, and um, yeah, the productions have gone down. I know there's still stuff filming because I drive past stuff and I'll see like the yellow signs. I'm like, oh, something's filming stuff. Something else is filming. There's still
Hmm.
stuff filming. It's just like a lower number right now, and my roommate works on the Universal backlot at the prop house, and she always like I always ask her like, "Oh yeah, what's going on? Like how many shows are filming? What's filming right now?" She's like, "We have, like 3 shows or like 11 shows." It's always like it varies a lot and it goes down a lot and so the in general I would say it's in a slower season, but um my hope and my belief is that it won't stay that way. Storytelling always wins out. People are always going to be looking for stories. We want content no matter what. So
Yeah.
the landscape may change, like the way we get them may change. Like people may be pivoting more to social media, more to YouTube, more to other places where it's like creator led,
Hmm.
storytelling. That could happen. I don't really know what the landscape's going to look like in the next few years, but I do, yeah, I do know that I think a shift will be happening, especially with the fires. Like that's going to take a while for the city to rebuild. So,
Oh, yeah.
you
And
know,
yeah, how that'll take years for it to shake out
yeah,
fully.
it's a bit uncertain right now, but I do believe a lot in LA, and it's a very strong city. It's a very powerful city. All of the people who are very driven and go-getters come to LA. So like it's a city filled with people that like are going to be a go-getter.
Yeah.
So I think we'll make it through, but it's a yeah, it's definitely a challenging season for the city.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, to me, it'll be interesting to see how things shake out with the studio. And I know
I know.
that's like way above both our pay grades. It's the Wall Street folks, but yeah, it's this is the first time really in media since the beginning of the studios that it hasn't been onward and upward
Mhm.
for everything, and a big shift in technology that hasn't worked in their favor.
Yeah.
Like cable. How is it? Uh, Silent film to sound worked in their favor, increased their audience. Sound to color increased their audience. Color sound movies to black and white TV increase their audience. To color TV increase their audience. To VHS cassettes increase their audience. To cable TV increase their audience. And now streaming service is kind of the first one that didn't work out for the studios. And to me, like that's empowering to creators, it's empowering to actors because a lot of the gatekeepers are gone with social media. But at the same time, it's a confusing time for everybody. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think it's just I don't know. It's like I said, it's about staying good with you. It's about staying detaching from your results as an actor, detaching from your results as an artist, as a creative, because it's very easy. I see a lot of actors and creatives getting really down on themselves because of the shortage of opportunities, or they're like,
yeah,
I don't feel like an actor because I haven't booked a job in XYZ, or like
yeah,
it's just and that's where the challenge comes is like, okay, well, is your value come from your work? Does your value come from your accomplishments? Or does your value come from you as a human being, from who you are at your core, from the value that you offer this earth by being a being on this planet? You know what I mean? And like, it's
yeah,
like super whatever. But yeah, I see a lot of artists going through that right now where they're having to like figure out, okay, where does my value lie? And is it in what I'm doing, or is it in who I am? So it's a good opportunity to ask yourself some hard questions right now.
yeah, exactly. Well, no, to me, any change is opportunity. So try to find the opportunity in the change.
100%.
And if you're that person who can think on your feet and see the opportunity, it will work out for you.
Yep.
Whereas, if you're not that person, but honestly, be that person. Just
You just choose
just
to
be
be
like,
it.
choose to be it, because like you said, it's really just a mindset. So how do you feel you learned how to act? Like you just always did it, so you just. But do you have like a feeling of like when it clicked, like, and now I know what I'm doing?
Yes and no, because I feel like it's ever evolving. I because I started acting so young, I started taking classes very young. I was in training and workshops and coaching from as young as I can remember. Like I was learning how to read screenplays at the time that I was learning how to read books.
Yeah,
I don't really remember a time where I wasn't working on that skill, but I definitely learned more over the years. And like, if you watch a movie of me as a I was in this movie when I was 11. That's like really, it's bad film, but like you look at my acting then as an 11-year-old now compared to an
Well,
adult.
you're an
Like,
11-year-old.
yeah, exactly.
Honestly,
But
it's amazing you can say a line and stand in front of a camera. And I think that's all pretty much anybody expects.
yeah, I had to do a French accent as an 11-year-old in this movie, which was insane. But it's just funny. Of course, like I've improved over the years, obviously, but I don't really remember like an exact time where I was like, I'm a great actor now. But I feel like I've always been learning,
Yeah.
and I get better every year. I get better every project. I get better every role, and
Yeah.
something like I think the moment that it clicks for me the most is when I realize um that I'm being deeply present as somebody else. Like that's when I'm like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, this is acting," right? Like when I'm so present in the moment and I'm so present in my listening and I'm so present in like the experience that I'm having while being somebody else. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like it's hard to explain that. I know there's so many different methodologies and there's so many different schools of thought around that. I've taken a lot of acting classes in LA still too, like trained quite a bit, on and off. But yeah, I think what it always boils down for me is like how can I embody this other person in the most truthful way possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then finding the ways that work for me to do that. And sometimes I found like teachers, coaches in LA that like their methodologies really make sense to me in the way that I've always done acting or the way
Hmm.
that I choose to be an actor. But then sometimes you take classes and you're like, okay, that doesn't compute. Like your perception of like how to be an actor is very different from mine. So
Hmm.
then you kind of just like figure out what works, what doesn't, and then go from there. But, I love acting. It's such a cool thing to be able to embody somebody else and, like, their lived experience, and I feel like I know I've gotten a role down when, like, I'll see something that's, like, that character had or an experience they might have had, and I'll be like, "Oh, I've done that." I'm like, "No, you didn't." Like, you played a character who did that. Like,
Yeah.
I played a character that was, like, an old-timey Western film, and one time I saw a painting of, like, like, a barn and a girl with a horse and, like, I don't know, I was like, "Oh, I've lived that experience." I was like, no, you played a character who lived that experience. But that's like the moment when it becomes really real and you're like, cool. Yeah, I did embody that person for a while and that felt really good.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And I do. Oh, back to the audition. I thought I had, and you can give me your opinion on this. Like, I think it's important to enter the room like you've been there a million times and you're
Yeah.
confident, you're collected.
Yeah.
Because they don't want somebody to show up and just like even have a hard time, like, not looking at the lights or
Totally.
something. Like, they want somebody to show up, won't be a problem, and, knows how to act and knows how to be on set and knows how to
Totally.
go through the process. So the first thing you can show them is that you know how to audition.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you walk into the room, you're like, "Hey, my name's Janet. Here's my performance of Caroline.
Just like that.
Caroline the
Caroline.
Caroline the axe murderer." And then
Yeah.
I don't know, go into your thing. But, like, but if you just kind of, like, you're meek as a mouse, you're not the person. You gotta, like, if you need to walk in the room and take over the room, and they want you to do that.
Yeah. My mom always, my mom's taught me so much because I've been just doing this since like when she was an actor, she would teach me these things. And she she did theater in high school. And
Yeah.
one of the things she taught me when I was a kid was like she always called it the threshold, like thresholding. Like when you cross the threshold of that room, like when the door opens and you cross the threshold, you are on, right?
You're
Like
on stage.
yeah, you're
That's when the audition begins, as soon as
yes.
they can see you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then now as I've grown up and as I've learned more about that, I even would, like, take that to the next level, which is like, okay, it's not that I'm performing the second that I get in the room, it's that I am dialed into my magnetic energy. I'm so deeply present and connected, and
Mhm.
that's what makes you, magnetic. That's what makes this energy that people are like, "Oh, who's that?" Then you stand out, then you're a little bit different. Everyone's performing. But how can you be so bought into yourself and your own energy that when you enter the room, they're like, "Oh, we haven't seen that yet. Okay." And now I'm taking
Yeah.
note. And that's yeah, I'm really passionate about that. I think that's really important.
No, it's true, and, even in a like, I had a friend who was a sales agent for a major airline, and it was interesting. I asked her, "How did you get the job?" And it was a really good job for somebody her age. Like, she was, like, made a really good living and stuff. She says, "Well, I was working as a stewardess, and they had this job posting up," and I was like, "Well, I'm gonna apply for this." And then I think it was like, I did well in the interviews and stuff, but I think they were watching us when we were in the lobby, and they were seeing who would talk to everybody. Because
Mm.
being a sales rep, you need to be like an account manager, you need to be like outgoing. And
Yeah.
she said, I think it's because I was talking to everybody and was really outgoing in the lobby. I think that was kind of the big thing in a lot of ways,
Wow.
you know. But she also had a lot of other things going for her. But again, as soon as you're in their vicinity, they're watching, their assistant is watching,
Mhm.
you know. I mean, again, if it don't, again, they don't want somebody's like super weird either. Again, it's like, yeah,
Unless they do.
unless they do, it depends on your part. But
Yeah.
I mean, what is it like? Actors will like kind of semi dress up as the role
Mhm.
for an audition, and actually, I think that's something probably worth doing. I don't know. Do you have video on that?
I think you can dress inspired by the role. Like I wouldn't
Yeah,
like don a
I,
full on
yeah,
costume,
exactly.
but I would do your version of the role. Like who is this character through you and like how are you inspired by this
Like
character?
if you're auditioning for The Outsiders, you don't need to slick back your hair and everything, but you could wear a white shirt. I don't know,
Yeah.
like kind of like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
something inspired by the character I think is good.
yeah, yeah,
Your take on it.
yeah. So let's talk about producing. What has been like producing and directing, and how do you feel that relates to acting? And what perspective did that give you on acting?
Yeah, those are great questions. It relates to acting in the sense of what I said a little bit before, where I've always been an actor, but I kind of reached a point where I was like, I've been sitting on this side of the coin of the camera for a long time, and there's a point where you realize, like, okay, everyone, I only get picked if I get picked, and I would like to pick myself. So I kind of started writing and started like creating some opportunities. Like my first project that I made was a short film called Box Boy. We
Hmm.
filmed that in 2022. It released in 2023. I almost said last year, but now we're in 2025. But and like I said, we premiered at Film Quest. We've played at a few other festivals around the US.
Yeah.
And that was really fun. That was my first time directing, my first time like really producing and like writing something. I had a co-writer like writing from start to finish and making it. And like
Yeah.
it was really cool. And it's a fun little project. It's like kind of my love letter to Utah. It's a silent film. All the characters have boxes on their heads. They live in a box world. And it's a
Mhm.
very like artistic take on leaving boxes that people have put us into, that we've put ourselves into, society has put us into, shifting your mindset and realizing like how much there can be to your life if you're willing to leave the box.
Mhm.
So yeah, I was inspired by Utah, frankly, and how much so many people tend to live like a very similar life and like do the same things and go on the same paths. And I was kind of like, this is during the time where I was like, I think I want a different path. I think I'm gonna leave my box. And
Mhm.
so then made a short film about it, and
And
that was
certainly
really fun.
living the life in arts is to do that, you know?
Yes. Yeah, they say, what is it? Make what create what you know, kind of thing. Write what you know. That's what it is.
Yeah, yeah,
Like something like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
But that was really fun. And so since then, it's opened up a couple other opportunities as well. I associate produced a TV show the year before last, and then I've worked on some other like features and some short films and whatever. So I really enjoy the creation process of it. I'm
Mhm.
very right-minded, but I'm also or right-brained, but also left-brained. So I think producing works well for me because it's a combination of both skills. Like I'm very detail-oriented and logical and like very good at staying organized, but I'm also like very creative and able to kind of like fill in the gaps and create new solutions when needed. And then so that's why I think producing works well for me. And then directing is also fun because I've spent so much time creating characters as an actor that I love being able to like kind of be the creator of the story, in the way that it plays out visually and how the story is told. So yeah, I really enjoy those opportunities. It's a fun experience to have after having